In the vast expanse of the galaxy, the Assemblies were the pinnacle of interstellar diplomacy, where delegates from countless species gathered to shape law, trade, and alliances that spanned light years. Each species brought their customary weapons, not only for protection, but as symbols of authority and status. Yet humans were conspicuously unarmed. This was not by oversight or weakness. It was a rule older than most humans could trace, a prohibition that had been agreed upon when humanity first joined the Council. At that time, humans were still a fledgling species, barely aware of the galaxy's other inhabitants. Yet their ingenuity and unpredictability had already begun to unsettle older civilizations. The prohibition was not grounded in fear of violence, but in respect for the chaotic potential of human creativity. Where other species relied on brute strength or technologically enhanced abilities, humans demonstrated a unique adaptability, the ability to turn any situation to their advantage with strategy, persuasion, or clever improvisation. At the first assembly humans attended, they had been allowed to bring small arms for defense, a gesture intended to reassure the more cautious delegates. Within hours, those same arms were used in ways no one had anticipated. Humans converted ordinary tools into defensive constructs, disarmed potential threats without harm, and negotiated from positions of sudden advantage. The Council quickly realized that conventional restrictions could not contain humanity's resourcefulness. Over time, the prohibition became formalized. Humans could speak, vote, and influence decisions, but they could not carry any weapons designed to inflict harm. This restriction, paradoxically, became humanity's greatest strength. Deprived of arms, humans learned to wield intellect, negotiation, and observation as weapons. They read other species' intentions with uncanny precision, anticipated conflicts before they erupted, and turned even hostile encounters into opportunities for alliances or concessions. There were legendary incidents that cemented the human reputation. In one assembly, a faction of the Quarrens planned to disrupt proceedings with cloaked attack drones. Without any weaponry, a human delegate studied their movements, projected illusions across the chamber, and caused the would-be attackers to sabotage each other. By the time the Council realized what had happened, the humans had secured their objectives without a single shot fired. Tales of such exploits spread across the galaxy, earning humans both admiration and wariness. Philosophers debated whether the prohibition was an insult or an honor. Some argued it was a measure of trust, forcing humans to prove themselves through intellect rather than force. Others suggested it was born of fear that the older races knew the galaxy itself might bend to humans if they ever disregarded the rule. Among humans, opinion was divided. Some bristled at being treated differently, insisting that they were capable of responsible armament. Others embraced the challenge, reveling in the art of influence, strategy, and innovation. This unique constraint shaped human culture profoundly. They became masters of diplomacy, experts in manipulation, and unrivaled strategists, able to navigate crises that would stump other species. Even the Council's most seasoned delegates learned to respect human ingenuity, often seeking their counsel in matters of complex negotiation, knowing that a human perspective could turn deadlock into agreement. Yet, for all their success, humans never became complacent. They understood that their reputation as unarmed yet supremely capable carried weight, and with it, responsibility. They balanced audacity with prudence, daring enough to push boundaries, careful enough not to provoke universal outrage. And so, within the towering halls of the Galactic Assemblies, where plasma weapons hummed at the sides of other delegates, humans walked unarmed but never powerless, their influence resonating louder than any gunfire. The prohibition, far from a limitation, had forged a species whose ingenuity defined them, whose restraint commanded respect, and whose presence in the Council reminded all others that the most formidable weapon in the galaxy was not firepower, but the human mind. And as humans continued to navigate diplomacy, trade, and interstellar politics, it became increasingly clear that the rule was not about restriction, but about proving that in a universe obsessed with weapons, The greatest power could come from restraint, intelligence, and the audacity to defy expectation. Years passed, and humans became indispensable to the Galactic Assemblies, their unarmed presence paradoxically granting them influence that rivaled entire coalitions. Delegates from other species often underestimated humans, seeing them as fragile or easily contained, but those assumptions were quickly shattered. During one pivotal assembly on the neutral station of Vorin Prime, tensions escalated between two powerful factions, the Zalarians and the Quarrens, over disputed territorial claims on a cluster of resource-rich star systems. The argument teetered on the edge of open conflict, and while every other species prepared their weapons and defensive wards, the human delegation remained unarmed, observing quietly. As tempers flared, the human ambassador, a young diplomat named Ilera, stepped forward. Her species' lack of weaponry, far from a disadvantage, drew the attention of all present, a silent statement that she intended to negotiate rather than fight. She listened intently, noting not just the words, but the inflections, the subtle shifts in posture, the micro-expressions that betrayed hidden intentions. Other delegates, armed and confident, expected humans to be sidelined. Yet it was Ilera's calm analysis that began to untangle the knot of accusations and threats. Slowly, she proposed alternatives that neither side had considered, creative compromises that balanced resource allocation while preserving face for both factions. Her suggestions were initially met with skepticism, but as she demonstrated the feasibility of each solution through holographic simulations and precise calculations, doubts gave way to reluctant admiration. Then came the true test, an unexpected sabotage attempt. A group of Quarren extremists had planted a covert destabilization device in the chamber, intending to intimidate the Zalarians and seize leverage in the negotiations. Panic rippled through the assembly. Weapons were drawn, alarms triggered, and the air crackled with tension. Humans, still unarmed, sprang into action. Ilera and her team identified the device's location through observation and reasoning alone. Using nothing but their knowledge of physics, machinery, and spatial dynamics, they neutralized the device before it could activate. The other delegates watched in disbelief, realizing the humans had prevented disaster without ever drawing a weapon. The assembly resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted irrevocably. Humans were no longer seen merely as participants. They were arbiters, problem solvers, and tacticians whose power lay not in firepower, but in intellect and adaptability. From that day onward, even the most skeptical species accepted that humans' prohibition from carrying weapons was both a safeguard and a testament to their unparalleled ingenuity. Stories of that day traveled across galaxies, inspiring humans to embrace their unique role in interstellar politics. They understood that restraint had become a defining trait, transforming a potential weakness into a strength that commanded respect. Diplomacy became an art form, with humans leading negotiations that might have otherwise ended in war, and their reputation as the species that could influence outcomes without violence solidified. Yet, even with such success, humans remained vigilant, aware that the galaxy was full of unpredictable forces and that their ingenuity alone was their shield. They continued to innovate, to study, and to anticipate threats before they materialized, creating strategies that other species could not foresee. The prohibition that once seemed limiting had, over centuries, forged humans into masters of the unseen battlefield of minds, making them a species feared not for the weapons they wielded, but for the brilliance of their thinking. In the end, the Galactic Assemblies came to reflect a simple truth, that in a universe obsessed with power and weaponry, the humans stood apart, not through strength, but through wisdom, creativity, and an unyielding spirit. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond the assembly halls, it was clear that the humans, unarmed yet unmatched, had secured a place not just in the Council, but at the very heart of the galaxy's future. Their presence reminded all species that the most formidable force was often invisible, intangible, and impossible to predict. The human mind unshackled by convention, a testament to resilience, innovation, and the audacity to wield influence where others relied on firepower.